So we started this off talking about biology as the study of life and talking about the biodiversity on the planet. But I want to step back and have a quick philosophical conversation about how we define life in the first place. And I would hazard a guess that most of you right now are rolling your eyes and thinking, well, I know what living things are. I can walk up to a rock or a tree and tell whether it's living or not. I want you to think a little more deeply about exactly how you know that something's living or not living. And one way to do that is to take yourself out of a normal situation and envision something like this, where you are a space explorer, you've just landed on a new planet, and living things don't look just like everything that they do on Earth. What would you do? How would you figure out if you walked up to some item to determine if it was a living thing or a non-living thing? So sort of think about in your mind, what would that be? I go ahead and pause this and jot down a couple different things you would look for, and then you can compare that to the list we're going to come up with next. So these are 11 key characteristics of life. So these are the things you would walk up to and see if that new item on a new planet could do. And if it did, that would be an indicator of something that was living. So, can it reproduce? Does it react to stimuli? This is often the first one that people come up with because we think, well, if I poke it, it reacts. And that's an indicator of a living thing. Number 3, does it breathe or use oxygen? This is a really good one for a lot of things, but then there are also bacteria, for example, that survive without oxygen. So it's not a requirement for life. Eats, uses energy. It's another characteristic of life. Movement is a characteristic of life, but again, that varies from type of organism to type of organism. Does it grow or change over time? Does it produce waste? Does it evolve? You may look at number 6 and number 8 and think those seem pretty similar. The difference here is we're talking about number 6 being growth and change within the lifetime of the organism, and 8 being evolves over many generations. Number 9, does it need or use water? Right now, we don't understand how life could exist without water. Number 10, does it have a complex structure, a regular organization you can see over and over again in different individuals? And number 11, does it appear to be maintaining a constant internal environment? Homeostasis. Homeo means the same, cis is a process, so this is the process of trying to stay the same. Ironically, the process of trying to maintain a constant environment takes a lot of energy and work, and it's in fact a lot of what organisms spend their lifetime doing. I want to talk a little bit more about homeostasis because that is an important concept in human biology and life in general. We work hard to maintain homeostasis all the time. So we have a constant body temperature, we have a constant blood pH, we have a constant blood glucose level. And if any of these things gets off, we then have systems that work really hard to get it back to that normal place. I do want to talk about another philosophical distinction. Equilibrium and homeostasis are not the same thing. So equilibrium is a chemical concept, and when you have chemical equilibrium, it means that no chemical reactions are happening. So let me give you an example using oxygen in the blood versus the lungs. If oxygen levels are the same in the blood and in the lungs, then no oxygen would move across that barrier from the lungs into the blood. Now we need oxygen so that our cells can generate energy and continue to be alive. So we don't want equilibrium in our lungs. Instead, we want high oxygen levels in the lungs so that that oxygen will move into the blood and can be distributed throughout the body. We're going to learn about ATP as this key energy molecule, and we need a lot of ATP, and as long as there's more ATP than ADP, our body can continue to use this energy molecule to drive all its chemical reactions. If there's an equal amount of each one of these, we're at chemical equilibrium, and that is death. If you think about at its most fundamental, death is when our body is no longer able to maintain homeostasis. It's going to balance out body temperature, pH, blood glucose with the environment around us. So we actually spend our entire lives fighting chemical equilibrium. Another topic I want to mention is that life has emergent properties, and these are characteristics that only occur when parts are put together in a particular way. And a great example of this is a stopwatch or a pocket watch. It's got all these complex parts, and the emergent property is the ability to tell time. If I had a cardboard box with all of these loose pieces in it, I wouldn't be able to tell what time it is. So it's all about putting things together in just the right ways. And hopefully this resonates with you in terms of living things. Cells have to be put together in just a certain way so that they can generate energy, consume the nutrients they need, and get rid of the waste they don't need. At a ecosystem scale, you need producers and consumers, you need top predators, and if all of those things function together, we have a food web. So we're going to see emergent properties throughout the class, and this is connected to a theme we're going to see in the class of the relationship of structure and function. When we study life, there are two approaches. There's a reductionist approach and a systems biology approach. Reductionism is understanding complex systems by breaking them into their parts and understanding how each part works. So here we have an emperor penguin. If we wanted to understand emperor penguins, we would look at all of the body parts. We would dissect some penguins. We would look at the feathers under a microscope. We'd look at all the individual parts and assume that if we understood all those parts, we would then understand the emperor penguin. A systems biology approach says, let's understand a particular part by understanding everything around it and how its system works together. So here we have a Antarctic food web, and we've got the emperor penguin here. And maybe to understand the emperor penguin, it's less important to see what its feather structure is and how its heart works as to what is it eating. What is eating it? Where does it fit into this system? We can apply this sort of systems biology here at the ecosystem level all the way down to cells and parts of DNA. So the question is, what do we actually use when we study life? And the answer is a little bit of both. We need to understand where things fit in the big picture, which is systems biology, and we need to understand all the different parts. A lot of an introductory biology class is going to focus more on reductionism because we just have to understand the parts list before we can get to the big picture. But understand that I'm an ecologist and I'm interested in this broader systems view. So as much as I can, I'll be trying to develop the big picture of where all these individual little things we're studying fit into the big picture of studying biology.